Welcome everyone to my review of Archie Sonic issue 31. Part of me is not looking forward to this one, only because it features the return of Geoffrey St. and he and Sonic are meeting for the first time. If you need a reminder of who St. John is, he's a member of the Royal Secret Service who debuted in issue 20, the prelude to the Sally miniseries. He teamed up with Sally and her trainees throughout the miniseries in order to destroy Robotnik's auto-automation factory. In the end, completely out of nowhere, St. John plants one on Sally. There was no chemistry between them. Plus, the Sally he interacted with throughout most of the miniseries was a robot duplicate. Seeing how the Sally miniseries was co-written by Ken Penders, who also wrote issue 31's main story solo, I dread about what's coming. Sorry, I'll give this a fair shake. Anyway, let's get this started. We begin with Sally using Nicole to download files on Robotnik's latest project, and they are massive. Sally hears a train whistle and witnesses a nearby train taking off. She decides, for whatever reason, to jump on top of it. Nicole calls her out for her reckless action, but Sally states that as a freedom fighter, she has to be ready for anything at a moment's notice. Nicole points out that Sally could have waited for backup. Said backup, namely Sonic, Tails, Rotor, and Antoine, monitor Sally and the train carrying Robotnik's project, a super robot known as the Dynamic 3000. Robotnik plans to use it to maintain control of the western portion of the continent. Sonic, as always, speeds off to catch up to Sally, while everyone else boards their plane. Sonic approaches the train first. However, it's well defended. Earlier, Sally managed to board the train and make her way to the cabin where the Dynamic 3000 is located. Nicole is unable to scan the machine due to interference. That's when Sally's grabbed by someone from behind. Luckily for her, it's Geoffrey St. who says hello by jamming his tongue down her throat. Time and place, skunk boy. Even Sally calls him out for acting this way during a mission. St. John and his crew are here for the same reason as the Freedom Fighters, to stop the Dynamic 3000. Back outside, Sonic's recovered from the train's attack. He's been out long enough for the Freedom Fighter plane to catch up, and he hitches a ride on it. Let's check in on Sally and St. John from inside the train. Skunk Boy informs Sally that his men are in the process of stopping the train. Moments later, it screeches to a halt. Unfortunately, this triggers a failsafe that activates the Dynamic 3000. Sonic arrives on the train just as the Dynamic punches a hole in the ceiling, and his attempt to directly attack the thing leads to him slamming into the train car where Sally and St. John await. This action makes Skunk Boy believe Sonic is one of Sally's trainees, by the way. No time to clear things up, the Dynamic 3000 spots the Freedom Fighter's plane and changes into a new form to attack it. Sonic and St. John argue on how to attack the machine. Immediate action versus waiting for help. Sally notes that the longer they wait, the larger the chance the Dynamic could wreck the train and them along with it. Nicole chimes in with the information she's downloaded and reveals that Dynamic has two weaknesses. First, it cannot anticipate future actions, only react to a given situation. And second, based on Rotor's intel, it can be deactivated with an electric pulse scrambler plugged into its CPU. The best chance of success in taking this thing down is to exploit both weaknesses. The giant robot then kidnaps Sally, and Sonic's attempt to spin dash into the thing results in him getting zapped. And St. John's electric net didn't do jack. The two head outside the train where Sonic has some electric doohickey, courtesy of Rotor, that should generate enough juice to shut the thing down. Then St. John's forces can destroy it. First, they have to rescue Sally, which they do thanks to a little teamwork. Rotor decides to use some modifications on their plane to keep the Dynamic distracted long enough for Sonic to plug in the doohickey into the weak spot. St. John signals his men to blast the robot into smithereens. With the threat eliminated, the Freedom Fighters and the Royal Secret Service divide up the train supplies, the latter group taking the train itself. St. John once again plants a kiss on Sally, this time in front of everyone, before taking off. Sonic thinks this is Sally's way of making him jealous over St. John, and hopes to turn the table someday. This is where the story ends. There are two other short stories in this issue. The first one features Knuckles, It's part of a continuous plot thread that will eventually lead into its own miniseries. So what I'll do is, like what I've done with the Sally and Tails miniseries, I will compile all of the Knuckles stories, even the ones I've done in past videos, into my eventual Knuckles miniseries review. Besides, there's not much to summarize since it's only 2 pages long. The second short story features Rotor in a starring role. However, it's one of those stories that's split across 2 issues. What I'm probably going to do is, after I review issue 32, I'll make a bonus video review dedicated to Rotor's story, as there is enough story content to warrant it. Stay tuned for that. The story is pretty typical. 2 teams must work together to accomplish the same goal, while having different clashing styles. And by teams, I mean just Sonic and St. John. For the most part, the Freedom Fighters and the Royal Secret Service did their part in taking down the Dynamic, and that's only after Sonic and St. John gave the signals to their respective teams. Despite the tension between the two, I can overlook St. John mistaking Sonic as a trainee, given the Hedgehog's tendencies to run into danger. And I can see why Sonic's not a fan of waiting for St. John's backup. The key word is waiting. Something that Sonic, who's always on the move, does not like. It's very subtle here, but I think Penders wants to make Skunk Boy look good compared to Sonic. I'm not the only one who sees it, right? Despite the tension between the two, Sonic, St. John, and their teams did succeed in taking down this massive robot, and save Sally in the process. Which brings us to the love triangle. Oh boy. This is why, with a couple of exceptions, I am not a fan of romance in the Archie comics. Sally shares blame here, as she could have said to Skunk Boy that she's not interested at the moment. But as established at the end of her miniseries, Sally's now interested in either Sonic or St. John, and for the moment, she's leaning towards the latter. Sonic suspects it's Sally's way of making him jealous, and it's a message from her to him saying, "Try harder to get me." That could be it, or her feelings for St. John could be genuine. Who knows what Penders was planning with this romantic subplot. Thankfully, the whole romance subplot would more or less be straightened out down the line, but it will be a slog getting there. Some other things of note. Penders placed some pop culture nods into the story, the obvious one being the Dynamic 3000 referencing Transformers, especially when Sonic said the line, "There's more to him than meets the eye." The more subtle reference involves St. John's men. Their names are Jean-Claude and Dolph, a nod to action stars Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren, both of whom starred in the movie Universal Soldier. I assume that's what Penders was going for. Kind of odd to name characters after actors who often star in R-rated movies in a kid's comic. Then again, a few issues earlier, he named characters after Sir Mix-a-Lot and Snoop Doggy Dogg. Finally, there's the art, which was also done by Penders. And to be honest, it looks like someone smeared the art before it had a chance to dry. Well, that's it for this one. The next issue, number 32, will have our heroes encounter a Mobian caveman, as well as Sonic's roboticized dog, Mutsky. Maybe they'll be able to free him like Uncle Chuck. I'll see you then, folks. You know what I wish would happen? While St. John plants one on Sally, the Dynamic 3000 activates and catches them in a surprise attack. Hey, I can dream, can't I?